On the night of the graduation dinner, I sent the drunk school babe to the school bully's room. My childhood friend, however, mistook me for the school babe. It was a chaotic night. Everyone said that I deliberately broke up him and the school babe, so much so that after marriage, no matter what I did, I couldn't warm my childhood friend's heart, until I accidentally heard him talking on the phone on the street. As long as he can be happy, I'm willing to hold back Shernyanshu for a lifetime. Otherwise, who would want to marry a bookworm home? Doesn't she want a child? I'll give her one. The harsh sound of a car horn behind interrupted his words. My childhood friend subconsciously turned his head and saw me at the corner. Instantly, he ran towards me in a panic, trying to push me away. The next moment, we were both hit and sent flying by a car. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day of the graduation dinner. This time, I decided to fulfill his relationship with the school babe. Only my childhood friend, Shinsinian, knew that I liked the school bully, Yao Yi. On the night of the university graduation dinner, Song Yi asked me to take her to rest. I didn't know that it was the school bully's room. Moreover, the school babe had an excellent acting skill. As soon as she was out of everyone's sight, she became sober in an instant. Even when she looked at me, there was mockery in her eyes. In my previous life, I couldn't understand these things. After all, I was the scheming and vicious bookworm in everyone's mouth. It was not until I heard Shinsinyan's phone call before I died in my previous life that I finally woke up completely. So it turned out that he could sacrifice his whole life for Song Yi. I was so stupid to believe that the love he said when he proposed to me was real. Before I died, Shinsinyan and I fell in a pool of blood together, when the speeding car crashed into us. He desperately protected me in his arms and used his back to resist the impact for me. However, at such a time, doing anything was of no avail. The violent impact directly sent me flying more than 10 meters away. Before my consciousness dissipated, I vaguely saw, not far away, Shinsinian, stubbornly covered in blood. Even though his whole body was shaking with pain, he still tried his best to crawl towards me. The wounds on his 10 fingers were so deep that the bones could be seen. And his voice was shaking terribly. Xiaochu, don't scare me. Wake up and listen to my explanation. I was wrong, Xiaochu. Shinsinyan's heart-broken voice made me want to vomit, and immediately a large mouthful of blood gushed out of my mouth. At the last moment of my life, I finally fought once. I used all my strength to move my fingers, avoiding Shinsinyan's hand that was desperately reaching out to interlock fingers with mine. It was too late to admit mistakes now. Choo-choo. What do you mean it's too late? You haven't drunk much either. Come on, have some more. I was awakened from my memories. Only then did I realize that I had been reborn and returned to my senior year. The school bully was the host and invited us classmates to his empty villa to celebrate our university graduation. The graduation dinner might be the beginning of a new life for others, but for me in my previous life, it was the entrance to hell. The one who spoke just now was the school babe. Song Yi, her voice was sweet and delicate. Shinsinian always asked me to learn from her, even when she was angry. It was like acting coquettishly, and few people could refuse. I couldn't drink alcohol originally, but since the school babe took the initiative to toast, if I didn't drink, people would say that I was ungrateful. Unfortunately, the time point of my rebirth was not right. I had already drunk a glass of wine just now, and I started to feel a little dizzy. So no matter how much Song Yi tried to persuade me, I didn't drink another drop. I just held my glasses and pretended to be drunk. After all, I still had something to do later and couldn't really get drunk. Seeing this, Song Yi's eyes rolled. She picked up her wine glass and said to the others at the table, "The top student won't drink. Then I'll drink the rest for her." I lowered my head and sneered. She was clearly drinking the wine in her own glass, but she said she was drinking for me. In my previous life, how could I have her scheming? She really talked a good game. I poured a glass of plain water, held it and took a sip, silently watching Song Yi perform. At this time, Shinsinian had already helped Song Yi get Yao Yi drunk and sent him upstairs, and Shinsinian himself had also drunk a lot and was resting in the room next to Yao Ye's. At this time, Song Yi was performing so hard. She was probably up to something else. Soon, Song Yi's cheeks turned red from drinking, and she leaned on me with hazy eyes. She said in a voice that everyone could hear, "Choo-choo, I drank so much to block the wine for you. You send me upstairs to rest. My life and fortune are all in your hands. Choo-choo, you must ensure my safety." In my previous life, I had already been drunk by Song Yi. I only heard the words, "Go upstairs to rest," clearly from what she said. Then I was dizzily taken upstairs by her. However, after being reborn, I found that Song-yi's words and actions at this time were extremely clever. She said that it was because of me that she drank too much. I had the obligation to send her to rest safely, and as soon as she said these words, a seed was planted in the minds of everyone present. Whatever happened to Song-yi tonight was all my fault, coupled with her drunken appearance at the moment, needing to lean on me to walk. It showed her harmless identity to the outside world. But no one knew that from an angle that others couldn't see, Song-yi, relying on her height advantage over me, her hands seemed to be on my shoulders, looking as soft as boneless. In fact, she was pinching my shoulders and pushing me out. The pain in my shoulders made me frown, so I simply pretended to be drunk. Taking the opportunity of taking off my glasses, I shook off the restraint on my shoulders. Then, I softened into Song-yi's arms all of a sudden, half a head shorter than her. With a blushing baby face, I hugged her and acted coquettishly in a soft voice. "Sister E, I'm so dizzy, I can't walk anymore." Everyone present didn't expect me to react like this. After all, in their eyes, Song-yi and I were love rivals, because Shin liked her. And when I was asked who I liked during the game of Truth or Dare just now, I also said it was Shin. Soon, I heard someone exclaim, "Damn, the top student is really drunk," hiding in Song-yi's arms. I didn't say a word and just pretended to be drunk. From an angle that others couldn't see, I twitched the corner of my mouth and smiled. Song-yi was frightened by my actions, and her eyes instantly became clear, but she still needed me to take the blame for her tonight, so she could only grit her teeth and endure. Not pushing me away. Moreover, in order to make the fake seem real, she really drank a lot of wine and was at least 80% drunk now. With my messy hair, I blinked and looked at her. "Sister E, let's sleep together tonight." 3. I don't know what Song-yi was thinking at the moment, but that was really my plan. Only by staying with me tonight could Song-yi prevent the chaos from happening. Moreover, I had lived 10 more years than Song-yi at this time, in my eyes. She was a misguided younger sister. Perhaps she had experienced something in college that made her eager to find a rich boyfriend now. But the little girl, for the sake of face, designed me. She wanted everyone to think that I was jealous that Shin liked her, so I deliberately sent the drunkard to the school bully's room. In my previous life, her plan was very successful. The day after the dinner, I became a synonym for viciousness. Everyone said that I had hurt her. And everyone cursed me when they mentioned me. Gradually, I also thought that it was all my fault for drinking too much and sending her to the wrong room. It was me who caused her to disappear for 10 years. And it was also me who caused Shin to lose his beloved, so I started to try every means to atone for my sins. Since I couldn't find Song-yi, I gave all my repentance to Shin. I started to learn to love him, wanting to warm his heart with my sincerity. Just hoping that he would stop hating me. After all, I was adopted by the Shin family since I was a child, and I couldn't repay the kindness of more than 10 years of raising. But in the end, the one who was deceived the most was me. Shin could actually sacrifice his whole life for Song-yi, using marriage to hold me back, not allowing me the slightest chance to destroy Song-yi's happiness. Actually, on the day of the car accident, I went to find Shin. I originally wanted to tell him the whereabouts of Song-yi. It was also on this day that I learned from Yao Yi where Song-yi had been for the past 10 years. I wanted him to see Song-yi's true face, let him stop feeling guilty about why he got drunk and didn't protect Song-yi well on the day of the dinner. But before I could say anything, we were hit and killed. I was very grateful to God for giving me the chance to be reborn. Just now at the dinner table, I had been thinking, what should I do to repay God's gift? I had thought about taking revenge on Song-yi severely, making her taste what it was like to be ruined. But when I looked at the girl in front of me like a flower, I couldn't bear it. So when Song-yi asked me to send her to rest, I asked her in public if she wanted to sleep together. If she chose to be with me tonight and no longer do wrong things, then I would let go of what happened in my previous life. After all, there were 2 time spaces apart. There was no reason for me to take revenge on her in this time space for what she did to me in the other time space, but if she insisted on being stupid, I would also respect her choice. Everyone had to be responsible for their own choices. So, when Song-yi pushed me and stopped between the 2 doors, I asked her a second time, "Decide for yourself. Do you want to sleep here tonight or go to another room with me?" At this time, the effect of the alcohol on Song-yi came up, and her eyes were hazy when she looked at me, but when she heard my question, she still shook her head vigorously, trying to stay awake. "Let me think, I can't remember," Song-yi said as she knocked on her head a few times. Seeing this, I directly asked her who she chose. on the left is, I wanted to tell her that on the left was Xiao Yi, on the right was Shen Xinian, and I was beside her. However, before I could finish my words, I was interrupted by Song Yi. I forgot who I drugged. This sentence was like a thunderbolt exploding in my ear, making me stunned. At this moment, when I looked at Song Yi again, I just felt that she was like something rotten. The blooming flower had rotted from the root. In order to achieve her goal, she would actually use such a despicable means. I started to think about whether I had been drugged. Subconsciously, I took a step back and distanced myself from her. I asked her again, but got the same answer. She said, anyone is fine, just pick one. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes, deciding to let go of my savior complex and respect her fate, so I coldly watched her enter Shen Xinian's room by herself. Then I turned around and pushed open the door of the next room. Song Yi couldn't remember who she drugged, but I had the memories of my previous life. As soon as she said it, I knew who had been drugged. Tonight, I'll still come to save this poor little school bully. As soon as I opened the door, I was shivered by the cold air. The room was frighteningly messy, with water stains everywhere. Following the sound of water, I looked over. The always arrogant and cool school bully was now sitting pitifully on the ground, with his back against the sofa, pouring ice water over his head. His short-sleeved shirt was thrown aside. He was only wearing a pair of gray sweatpants. Xiao Yi lowered his head. His short, black hair was wet and stuck to his face, slightly covering his eyebrows and eyes. Water droplets slid down his sharp jawline and dripped onto his pants. 1 drop, 2 drops, creating a damp patch. It made people thirsty. The boy's slender fingers with distinct joints were squeezing the plastic water bottle, making it creak. Xiao Yi raised his head, seeing that no more water could be poured out. He actually stuck his tongue in and licked it. His bright red tongue circled around the mouth of the bottle and then retracted. The view was blocked by his full lips. The Xiao Yi in my memory was still a teenager with red hair and earrings, full of arrogance and rebellion. Now looking at him again, that arrogant face was still dazzlingly handsome. However, his red-tinged skin all over his body and his hot gasps indicated his abnormal state at the moment. He reacted a bit slowly and only then realized that someone had entered the room. Without even looking up, he viciously told the person to get out. Who let you in? Get out. But when he turned his head and saw that it was me, the words "don't touch me" in his mouth were forcefully swallowed back. He stumbled and tried to hide in the refrigerator, but because his legs were weak, he sat crookedly on the ground. I took a bottle of ice water, unscrewed it, and handed it to him. Xiao Yi, where's your phone? I'll call a doctor for you. He raised his head and took a few big gulps of water. The water that he didn't have time to swallow flowed down from the corners of his lips to his neck. Then, in a daze, he started groping in his pants pocket for his phone. I saw that his pocket was bulging, as if there was a phone in it, but after a long time, he still couldn't find where the pocket was. He also looked up at me with a confused face. His red lips were moving, but I couldn't hear what he was saying. I thought he was taking too much trouble. I directly pulled his obstructive hand away and went to get it myself, but the moment my hand reached in, I regretted it. With my experience as a urologist in my previous life for many years, this shape was definitely not a phone. Before I could scream, Xiao Yi was already panting unbearably in my ear. The hot air blew past the tip of my ear, and I subconsciously turned my head to avoid the itch. Just in time to meet Xiao Yi's red-rimmed eyes. I'll go call someone for you. I got up in a panic, but he held me down with a hand. His hand, through the fabric, pressed on my hand. There was another unbearable gasp. Probably the stimulation brought back some of his consciousness, and a hoarse voice blurted out, "Shernyanchu." I stared in a daze at Xiao Yi, who was a bit delirious. I was a little shocked. So the name he had been mumbling just now was mine. Even in this state, he could recognize me. But in my previous life, why did Shen Xinian make a mistake? Why did he mistake me for someone else? Or was it that in Shen Xinian's eyes, I was just someone who could be played with at will? The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. So I took a step forward, bent down, and lifted Xiao Yi's chin. Looking directly at him, I said, "Say it again, who am I?" As soon as my hand touched his skin, I felt a burning heat. When I tried to take it back, Xiao Yi held my hand with both of his and gently rubbed his cheek against it. His gaze slid from my lips to my eyes until our eyes met. "Shernyanchu, help me." 5. The rain in midsummer was extremely abundant, lasting most of the night. In the early morning after the rain, there was still a lingering atmosphere. I quietly opened my eyes. The school bully, who was rumored to be able to kick and break 3 of someone's ribs with one kick, was actually so well behaved when asleep, fortunately. The doctor came quickly last night. I lay on the edge of the bed all night, watching over him while he was getting in 4 drip. Yesterday he should have been poisoned. The result will be known when the blood test report comes out later. Now it's just dawn outside. I stretched my body greatly, pretending not to see the crazily trembling eyelashes of Yao Yi. I turned around and went out, to rest in the room arranged last night. Yesterday I said I would sleep with Song Yi. And the classmates specially gave us a big bedroom. Now the others in the villa haven't woken up yet, and it's quiet everywhere. I, who hadn't slept all night, lay down on the soft big bed and quickly fell asleep. It was not until late in the morning that I was woken up by the monitor's flustered voice. Choo-choo, wake up quickly, Song Yi is missing. Several girls were gathered around the bed, some worried, some looking forward to the show. Song Yi is really restless. Why did Choo-choo fall asleep as soon as she got drunk? She, on the other hand, doesn't know whose bed she's on now. This person was quite sensible. I closed my eyes and pinched myself hard until my eyes were filled with tears. Then I anxiously opened my mouth, my voice with a sobbing tone full of panic. I knew I shouldn't have drunk the wine that Song Yi poured for me last night. My head was dizzy after drinking it. How could she be missing when I woke up? Let's look for her quickly. A group of people searched the entire villa and finally gathered in front of Shen Xinyan's room, looking at each other. I pushed my glasses and said reproachfully, it's all my fault that I slept so soundly yesterday. What if she came back and entered the wrong room? A nosy classmate beside me couldn't hold back when he heard this. Shen Xinyan was also drunk yesterday. I hope nothing happened to them. Then he slapped the door hard, for fear of not waking up the people inside. However, there was no sound of chaos coming from the room. The door opened from the inside, and I was pushed to the back of the crowd. Shen Xinyan's tall figure blocked the door. His half-opened shirt revealed a large expanse of his chest. His eyes casually swept over everyone and he slowly said, "What's all the noise about? What could happen? A bunch of kids, always thinking about nonsense all day long." The classmates who were originally making a ruckus to watch the show suddenly fell silent, hearing this. I was also stunned. This tone was extremely similar to Shen Xinyan in my previous life. Could it be that he had also been reborn? Brother Shen, you're really different after getting laid. You don't even look down on us virgins anymore. Someone teased Shen Xinyan. I also looked up to see Shen Xinyan's reaction and unexpectedly met his gaze. Shen Xinyan's hand that was tidying his shirt paused. At this time, I could clearly see the marks on Shen Xinyan's body, under the half-opened shirt. On his collarbone and chest, there were full of glaring scratch marks. Anyone with eyes could tell how intense they were last night. Before I could say anything, Shen Xinyan spoke first, excitedly questioning me. "Sure Nianchu, where were you last night? Why was he lying on my bed? Where were you?" Shen Xinyan and I had been together day and night for more than 10 years, and he always called me by my name directly, but for Song Yi, it was an affectionate address that came out of his mouth immediately. Sure enough, Shen Xinyan's confession before I died in my previous life was all fake. I frowned and looked at Shen Xinyan disappointedly. As soon as he said these words, he convicted me. The classmates also looked at me accordingly. Even after being reborn once, he still believed that it was the 18-year-old me who deliberately framed Song Yi. At this moment, I almost once again experienced the despair of being slandered in my previous life. My whole body began to tremble slightly. The monitor noticed that something was wrong with me and protected me behind him. "Shen Xinyan, we're all adults. Why Song Yi appeared in your bed, room, probably only she knows. Choo-choo isn't your child bride in waiting. Why are you getting angry at Choo-choo?" With the monitor's words, the other classmates also reacted. Yeah. The top student was afraid that something would happen to Song Yi yesterday and even offered to sleep together to take care of her all night. Who knew how Song Yi ended up in your bed? The classmates' words left Shen Xinyan speechless. He was a bit annoyed. "What do you know?" Shen Xinyan reached out to pull me, but I shook him off vigorously. When I looked up again, my eyes were already filled with tears, but Shen Xinyan didn't see it. He was staring at the red mark on his hand that I had hit, lost in thought. I scolded myself countless times in my heart. I couldn't cry, but I still couldn't help it and felt wronged. Shen Xinyan, with all the marks on his body, said that he didn't touch Song Yi. Who was he trying to deceive, or was he trying to preserve Song Yi's good reputation? But why was it always me who got hurt? Why in my previous life? When he mistook me for Song Yi, he took me by force, and now, When Song Yi was within easy reach for him, he was reluctant to do anything. Was it just because the Shin family adopted me that I was inferior? Shin Sinian saw my tear-stained face but remained indifferent. After all, in his 2 lifetimes, he had never said a soft word to me, except for Song Yi, who could receive his gentle and considerate treatment. Shin Sinian always had a cold look that kept people at a distance from everyone else. Suddenly, a slightly hoarse and sweet female voice broke the stalemate. Sinian, do you not want to be responsible for me? Song Yi appeared at the door at some point. With messy clothes and red, swollen eyes, she looked extremely pitiful. Now everyone knew what had happened between them. The scene was chaotic for a while. Song Yi looked at Shin Sinian pitifully, before anyone could react. She cried and ran downstairs. Seeing this, Shin Sinian subconsciously wanted to chase after her but stopped abruptly, his eyes hesitating as they landed on me. He was making a choice between me and Song Yi, wondering which one was more important. Song Yi was the white moonlight he couldn't get in his previous life, and I didn't think about it anymore. I wiped away my tears, avoided Shin Sinian's outstretched hand, and distanced myself from him. Looking at him with disgust, I said, "Don't touch me, you're so dirty. You like her, right? I'll fulfill you." 6. I wasn't interested in what exactly was going on between Shin Sinian and Song Yi. After this farce ended, I quietly returned to Yao Ye's room. However, as soon as I got the blood test report, I was stunned. She actually gave you this kind of drug. This kind of prohibited drug not only made people weak all over but also had very serious after effects. No wonder he disappeared for so long in his previous life. He had gone to seek medical treatment. Fortunately, the doctor came in time yesterday and no irreparable consequences were caused. Yao Yi didn't react much when he heard my shock. He just sat quietly on the bed, staring blankly out of the window. The way he exuded helplessness and despair all over made my heart ache. It was not until Yao Yi, with his ears completely red, looked at me unnaturally that I realized it was very impolite to keep staring at someone like this. But before I could say sorry, Yao Yi spoke first. He reached out and handed me a card. "Thank you for yesterday. This is a reward. Can you keep this a secret for me?" I looked at the report in confusion. He seemed to be okay, but I still nodded. "Okay, but..." I pushed the card back to Yao Yi somewhat embarrassedly. I always felt that what I was about to say was a bit like taking advantage of the situation. "I'll keep it a secret for you. Can you be my boyfriend?" Before I finished speaking, Yao Yi almost jumped up from the bed. He widened his bright eyes and pointed at himself in disbelief. "You like me?" I was a bit flustered. At this time, I really did like him, but he didn't like me, so I quickly waved my hands, for fear that he would misunderstand. No, I want to ask you for help. Pretend to be my boyfriend and help me move out of the Song family. Is that okay?" Yao Ye's bright eyes quickly dimmed again, and he mumbled, "I knew you wouldn't like me." His voice was so low, and we were so far apart. I was afraid I had misheard. When I asked him what he said, that I didn't hear clearly, he quickly returned to normal, leaning against the head of the bed, looking as if he understood everything. "Sure, you want to take revenge on Shin Sinian through me, right?" I looked at Yao Yi. I had prepared a lot of words to persuade him to agree to help me, but I swallowed them all back. I didn't expect him to agree so readily. After all, apart from being high school classmates, we had no other interactions. In high school, Yao Yi and I were 2 extremes in the class, extremely few words and an extreme distance. I was in the first row closest to the podium, and he was in the last row closest to the back door. I couldn't tell when I fell in love with him in my previous life. Perhaps it was when he was late once and happened to meet the teacher praising him for his rapid progress in his studies. On the surface, he didn't care, but when he passed by me, I clearly saw his slightly raised lips and his proud eyebrows and eyes after being praised. For the first time, I thought he was also vivid, not as rebellious as he seemed on the surface, but a good kid who was secretly working hard to study. Maybe I started to be curious about Yao Yi from that time. Every time I smiled, I would subconsciously look at him, then accidentally meet his gaze and then look elsewhere indifferently. Lost in the past memories, I was a bit absent-minded. Yao Yi reached out and waved in front of me. "What's wrong with you? Can't you bear to make Shin Sinian sad?" I stared in a daze at Yao Yi, who was kneeling on the bed and slightly leaning towards me. There was no past cynicism in his eyes, but full of sincerity. I sighed in my heart. Sure enough, Yao Yi and Shin Sinian were sworn enemies. He didn't care whether I liked him or not. He only cared whether Shin Sinian would be unhappy. So, I looked up and met the gaze of Yao Yi, who was kneeling on the bed. and replied seriously, "Of course I can bear it, my boyfriend, nice cooperation." As I said this, I pulled Yao Ye's hand and put the card on it. One should not receive rewards without merit. Now, we were using each other, right? He helped me leave the Shin family, and I helped him annoy Shin Sinian, but I didn't expect that the moment Yao Yi met my gaze, he panicked and avoided it. He didn't take the card either, as soon as I touched his hand. Yao Yi was like being electrocuted. He got up from the bed and said randomly, "Since you're my girlfriend now, you have to spend my money. You go and change all the clothes on your body now. Throw away everything related to Shin Sinian." I looked down at the clothes on my body. Indeed, it was time to change, so I smiled at Yao Yi, who was looking around randomly but not at me. Okay, I'll listen to my boyfriend, probably because a new life was about to begin. I smiled especially happily this time. Yao Yi seemed to be infected by my happiness and also smiled. At this time, the housekeeper just knocked on the door and came in. I left tactfully. When I closed the door, I heard the housekeeper ask Yao Yi angrily and distressedly, "Master, how are you going to deal with this matter?" I recalled the fate of Song Yi in my previous life. I silently closed the door and left. There was nothing to pity. People had to pay the price for their mistakes. I just didn't know if the reborn Shin Sinian would plead for Song Yi. 7. After returning to the Shin family, I started to avoid Shin Sinian, but when I saw this familiar place again, those painful memories from my previous life almost rushed back in an instant. At that time, I was mistaken by Shin Sinian and drunk by Song Yi. I woke up to know what had happened. But because the person who made the mistake was Shin Sinian, I couldn't openly say that I was soiled. I could only scrub myself over and over again in the bathroom, until my whole body was covered with bloodshot marks. I still felt that I wasn't clean, but I had no one to confide in and could only accept it silently. Everyone in the Shin family thought that I should marry Shin Sinian. They even considered it a favor to me. No one cared about my thoughts, but after dying once, I realized that the person everyone should please the most was themselves. I'll give you this sentence too. I looked at Shin Sinian, who was blocking the door, and said coldly, probably due to his possessiveness, since I wasn't as obedient to him as I was in my previous life, he wasn't used to it. Instead, he was like crazy, trying to find a sense of presence in front of me all day long. I looked at him calmly and expressed my thoughts. "I don't think there's any deep affection between us. And you like Song Yi, right? You're willing to use marriage to hold me back for her. Now what kind of deep love are you pretending to have?" When Shin Sinian saw that I was being frank, a look of realization flashed in his eyes. He should have guessed that I was also reborn, otherwise, sure Nianchu at this time wouldn't be so cold. Shin Sinian stared at me stubbornly. "It was all my fault before. I just wanted to use Song Yi to make you jealous, actually. I don't care at all whether Song Yi is happy or not. I helped her because she could hold back Yao Yi. Xiaochu, we grew up together since we were young. We are the most suitable. You said you would only love me in your life and that you would only have children for me. How can you like someone else?" Shin Sinian seemed to have a mental problem, talking nonsense. In my previous life, Grandma Shen had always been looking forward to a great-grandson. Unfortunately, before the child was born, Shin Sinian and I were hit and killed. After being reborn, he finally remembered our poor baby. I rolled my eyes. I didn't believe a single word he said. I looked at Shin Sinian coldly. "We're not kids anymore. There's no need to make it too embarrassing. Grandma is old and can't be frightened. I will move out as soon as possible. Please don't cause me any more trouble." I didn't pay attention to Shin Sinian's reaction anymore. I turned around and left. As soon as I went downstairs, I saw Grandma Shen, who was full of worry. "Choo-choo, did you quarrel with Sinian? Why don't you get engaged before you go abroad? Grandma will make the decision for you." I quietly withdrew my hand and lowered my head, no longer looking at Grandma Shen. "Grandma, I won't go abroad. I have a boyfriend, and Shin Sinian, he doesn't like me." After hearing this, Grandma Shen didn't say anything more, just couldn't stop sighing. 8. It was graduation season, and it was not easy to find a house. I had been looking for several days but hadn't found a suitable one. Instead, I ran into Yao Yi on the road. He said he had several vacant houses and told me to choose one to live in without paying rent. I didn't want to owe him, so I still had to pay the rent. Moreover, the scholarship I had in hand was enough for my expenses during this period. On the day when the rental contract was finalized, I treated Yao Yi to a meal. When he sent me back, we happened to meet Shin Sinian, who had been trying to block me all day long. Accompanied by the warm summer breeze, Yao Yi and I were taking a walk to digest food. As soon as we turned a corner, we bumped into Shinsinian, who was waiting at the entrance of the villa. He was leaning against the wall of the gate, and the dim street lamp couldn't clearly illuminate the expression on his face, but it was clear that his gaze fixed on me was almost blazing with anger. "Shernyanchu, stay away from him." Shinsinian's disgusting possessiveness was acting up again. He walked quickly towards us and reached out to pull me. However, he was blocked by Yao Ye's tall figure. Since I was a child, I had been afraid of an angry Shinsinian, and subconsciously, I grabbed Yao Ye's sleeve. Yao Ye visibly stiffened for a moment, but the next moment, he firmly held my hand in return. He gently shook it, indicating that I shouldn't be afraid. Beside Yao Ye, I looked up at him. For the first time, I felt what it was like to be protected. It was an indescribable sense of peace of mind. I was a bit greedy and leaned closer to Yao Ye. Apparently, my actions infuriated Shinsinian. He strode forward to pull Yao Ye's hand away. As a result, he was pushed away by Yao Ye. "Brother-in-law, I'm sending my girlfriend home. Do you have to interfere with this?" Shinsinian was so angry at Yao Ye's words that his eyes seemed about to split. He seemed to have forgotten that I was no longer his wife. We had both been reborn, and now I was just Shinsinian's stepsister with no blood relation. I hid behind Yao Ye and secretly gave him a thumbs up. "Good guy." He got into the role instantly in front of the enemy. Shinsinian was so angry that he raised his hand to hit someone. He was stopped by Aunt Shen, who came out to look for him. She calmly sized up Yao Ye and me and said to me indifferently, "Xiaochu, there are guests at home today. Ask your classmate to come to play another time." Shinsinian's mother had always looked down on me, especially after that chaotic night between me and Shinsinian in my previous life. She even more believed that I was coveting wealth and deliberately scheming against Shinsinian just to marry into the Shin family. After being reborn, when I saw the contemptuous look in Shinsinian's mother's eyes again, I didn't know where I got the courage from. In front of her, I affectionately hugged Yao Ye's arm and said coyly, "Auntie, this is my boyfriend. Since there are guests at home, why don't I come back later?" After saying that, I made a show of being inseparable from Yao Ye, reluctant to part. Whether in my previous life or this life, I never liked Shinsinian, and I was not at all eager for the position of the Shin family's daughter-in-law. Shinsinian's mother clearly didn't expect me to be so bold. Surprise flashed across her face, but she quickly returned to normal. She became the arrogant noblewoman again. Only the punching bag changed from me to Shinsinian. She glared at Shinsinian, quite disappointed with him. "Useless thing, come in with me." After saying that, she dragged Shinsinian back. Seeing that I didn't follow, her steps paused for a moment, and she slightly turned her head, saying in a flat tone, "Xiaochu, come too, this matter concerns you too." I patted Yao Ye's hand holding mine, indicating that he could let go, but he was a bit worried and whispered in my ear, "I'm not. I'll wait for you at the door for a while, call me if there's anything." I nodded obediently and followed back to the Shin family, but I didn't expect that as soon as I entered the door, I saw an unexpected person. Grandma Shin always went to bed early. However, it was already 10 o'clock today, and she was still sitting on the Grand Master chair with a worried look on her face. I wondered what kind of guests could alarm Grandma Shin. Shinsinian and I entered one after another, and Grandma Shin let out a long sigh. "Alas, Sinian, what you've done has completely shamed our Shin family." I silently looked at the guest sitting on the sofa, with a fearless look on her face. I also sighed in my heart, "Man proposes, God disposes." The person who had disappeared for so long had now come back on her own. The day after the dinner, Song Yi disappeared after crying and leaving. After more than a month, Song Yi appeared again now. Her disdainful eyes passed over me and landed on Shinsinian. She touched her belly and said pitifully, "Sinian, I'm pregnant. Aren't you going to take responsibility for me yet?" As soon as these words were spoken, Grandma Shin sighed continuously. Shinsinian also frowned tightly. Probably he didn't expect that the white moonlight he couldn't get in his previous life, after being reborn, would stick to him like a leech, taking the initiative to pester him. I didn't understand. This was clearly what Shinsinian had always wanted. Why did he look so gloomy now? I lowered my head and remained silent, hiding beside Grandma Shen. Song Yi was now heavily made up and looked tough, and it was hard to tell that she was the same age as us. I had to say that she had the means to deceive everyone in her previous life. Obviously, Song Yi's parents were also present. Although her parents looked a bit honest and timid, she bypassed her parents and talked to the elders of the Shin family by herself. Her attitude was clear: either get engaged to Shinsinian now and secure the position of Mrs. Shin in the future, or she had to be given an exorbitant hush money. Once she got the money, she would abort the child, otherwise she would make the matter public and completely shame the Shin family. When Grandma Shin heard her say she wanted to abort the child, she wished they could get married right away, but when she saw me standing beside her, Grandma Shin hesitated again. At this time, Shin Xinyan's mother couldn't sit still. In my previous life, she had never liked me no matter what. Now I had become the well-behaved and obedient daughter-in-law in her eyes. Xiaochu is the daughter-in-law I had my eye on a long time ago. What are you? Who knows how you got pregnant? If you want money, go for an amniocentesis and do a paternity test. The children of our Shin family will definitely not be left outside, but you, don't even think about entering the door of our Shin family. Shin Xinyan's mother became more and more excited as she spoke, and the scene suddenly became chaotic. Grandma Shin shook her head and sighed, stopping Shin Xinyan's mother, saying that there was something to discuss and asking us two to go upstairs. Xinyan, you wait downstairs, pour water for uncle and aunt, don't lose your manners. I didn't know what Grandma Shin was going to say and just followed her upstairs with my head down. At this time, Shin Xinyan's mother seemed to suddenly discover my goodness. She took my hand, looking affectionate, until we entered the study with Grandma Shin. Shin Xinyan's mother was still repeating, Xiaochu. Auntie only recognizes you as her daughter-in-law. You grew up in front of Auntie's eyes. You're so cute and sensible. Auntie loves you the most. You mustn't be deceived by outsiders. That boy just now, he looks hard to control at first glance. How can he be as steady as your brother Xinyan? Xiaochu, be obedient and go abroad with Xinyan at ease. When you come back, Auntie will definitely hold a grand wedding for you. Aunt Shin's words were interrupted by the sound of Grandma Shin's cane hitting the ground. Grandma Shin looked extremely tired. She sat in front of the desk and looked at me as if she didn't know how to start. I withdrew my hand from Aunt Shin's and said to Grandma Shin, Grandma, brother Xinyan doesn't like me, and I never thought of marrying him. Moreover, the classmates at school all know that the girl he likes is the one who came downstairs. Auntie, the Shin family has raised me so well. I can't bite the hand that feeds me. I'll leave tonight and make way for the person downstairs. Grandma, I've grown up and can take care of myself. After I finished speaking, tears welled up in Grandma Shin's eyes. She had raised me as her own granddaughter. Before, she often said that when I grew up, I should marry Shin Xinyan so that I wouldn't be bullied after getting married. Grandma Shin was really kind to me. Now that such a thing had happened to Shin Xinyan, Grandma Shin wouldn't force me. But Shin Xinyan's mother might not be the same. She couldn't stand her son being rejected. Her finger with bright red nail polish poked my forehead one by one, scolding me for being ungrateful. That's enough. The teacup was smashed at Shin Xinyan's mother's feet. Grandma Shin shouted angrily. Then she took out a document from the safe and asked me to go over and take it. Xiaochu, this is the shares left to you by your biological parents. I originally wanted to give it to you when you got married as a dowry, but now that you're grown up, it's better to let you keep it yourself. I stared blankly at Grandma Shin. My parents had actually left me something. I was actually loved by someone. I took the slightly thick document with trembling hands, and my eyes were misty. In my previous life, until I died miserably, I had never heard of this inheritance left by my biological parents. In this new life, there was actually an unexpected surprise. When Shin Xinyan's mother saw that I had accepted it, she still tried to stop me. Mom, why did you really give it to her? I ignored her and tried my best to control my trembling hands and flipped through the document. My parents had actually left me a considerable inheritance. No wonder I had never heard of this in my previous life. I'm afraid it had all been embezzled by Shin Xinyan's mother. I carefully held the document in my arms and bowed to Grandma Shin. Grandma, thank you for your kindness in raising me all these years. I will take care of myself in the future. I'll move out tonight. I'll come back to see you when I'm free. After saying that, I turned around and left to get my documents from my room. When I went downstairs, Shin Xinyan saw me carrying my bag and about to leave. He reached out to stop me. His eyes were unfathomable, and I didn't know what he was thinking. Where are you going? It's none of your business. I looked at the small bag in my hand and smiled self-deprecatingly. I had lived in the Shin family for more than 10 years. When I was leaving, the things that belonged to me were actually only so little. Song-yi couldn't stand Shin Xinyan and me lingering. From a distance, she put on the airs of a hostess. Yo, you're leaving. Don't come back often in the future. I ignored her. I shook off Shin Xinyan's hand, patted the place he had touched in disgust. and said sarcastically, "Shinsinian, you've always wanted a child, right? Look, someone is going to give birth to one for you." 10. As soon as I went out, I saw Yao Yi waiting at the door. He naturally took the bag in my hand and gently wiped away the tears on my face. His fingers with body temperature landed on my forehead, where Shinsinian's mother had poked me with her hand. He carefully looked at me, his eyes full of worry. "Are you okay?" I gave him a big smile in return. "Yao Yi, I'm free." At this moment, I truly felt that my future life was bright. "Thank you, Yao Yi, you don't have to pretend to be my boyfriend anymore. From now on, you're my landlord." "May I ask, landlord, can I move in tonight?" As I spoke, I walked forward happily, not noticing Yao Yi's gradually slowing pace at all. It was not until the boy's slightly disappointed voice came from behind that I noticed Yao Yi had stopped there. "Ah, you're welcome. But I don't want to break up." I didn't quite understand. This wasn't really a breakup, was it? We hadn't really dated in the first place. Yao Yi's tall figure looked a bit lonely under the illumination of the street lamp. I walked over and tugged at his arm. "Come on, I still don't have a place to live tonight." Feeling that Yao Yi was a bit reluctant, I also felt that I really seemed to be using people and then discarding them, so I took the initiative to reflect on myself. "I really didn't help you annoy Shinsinian. I think it's probably useless for you to take revenge on Shinsinian through me. He doesn't like me at all." My voice got smaller and smaller as I spoke. The remaining half sentence that I didn't say was, "And you don't like me either. It's better to end it as soon as possible." Before I could finish speaking, Yao Yi blurted out a sentence. "He likes you, I also." Yao Yi suddenly stopped speaking halfway through, which was really tantalizing. "What did you say?" I didn't hear clearly. At this time, Yao Yi suddenly quickened his pace and walked in front of me. Then he slowly said, I also think you're right. Shinsinian doesn't deserve you." I trotted a few steps to catch up with him. "As a reward, sometime later, I'll show you a big show. It will definitely satisfy you. If Shinsinian can have an easy time, my surname will be yours." Yao Yi stopped, turned around to look at me, and said word by word, "Okay, I'll listen to you." The seriousness in Yao Yi's eyes made me a bit scared. It seemed that he was especially looking forward to that day. 11. Fortunately, someone was looking forward to that day more than me. Song Yi's pregnancy couldn't wait. Grandma Shen directly set the wedding date. However, on the wedding day, Shinsinian actually fled the wedding. No one knew where he had gone. Song Yi in the backstage of the wedding was so angry that she smashed the dressing room, but no matter how angry she was, she had to endure it. She had planned so much just to find a good background for the child in her womb. That's why on the night of the dinner, she said that either Yao Yi or Shinsinian would do. In her previous life, during the 10 years when Song Yi disappeared, she didn't marry Yao Yi smoothly as the rumors said. Instead, she was sentenced to 10 years in prison for poisoning Yao Yi and extortion. Originally, since Song Yi was pregnant, she could have received a lighter sentence. But she drank too much wine on the night of the dinner and didn't pay attention at all during her pregnancy. This led to the deformity of the fetus, and she had a miscarriage early. Thinking about it now, it was probably during this period of time. At the wedding scene, the groom didn't show up, and it was in a noisy mess. Shinsinian's mother was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Song Yi, on the other hand, was comforting her while covering her stomach. However, they couldn't get in touch with Shinsinian no matter what. Yao Yi and I looked at each other and smiled, quietly waiting for Shinsinian to appear. Shinsinian was extremely conceited, and he would definitely come back. Song Yi had calculated him and played him for a fool. I'm afraid Shinsinian even had the thought of killing her. He regarded such a person as his white moonlight. He probably regretted it to the core. The stage was all set up, and it was really a pity that the male protagonist wasn't there. At this moment, I received a message. It was the news that Shinsinian had come out of the hospital. The cleaning auntie in the hospital had, as I instructed, accidentally let Shinsinian see Song Yi's test report. Coincidentally, when Yao Yi asked me to accompany him for a follow-up examination, we unexpectedly saw that Song Yi was also there. The way she was hiding and covering up clearly indicated that something was fishy. She was so afraid that others would see the test report in her hand that she threw it away as soon as she went out. After she left, I picked it up. It showed that Song Yi was 3 months pregnant. However, from the day of the graduation dinner until now, it had been less than 2 months. In addition, during the months before graduation, Shinsinian had been abroad taking the IELTS exam and wasn't at school at all. No matter how you calculated it, this child wasn't his. I put down my phone and calmly looked at the entrance of the hall. Sure enough, Shinsinian, with a gloomy face, came. Songyi took the initiative to greet him and, pretending to be concerned, wiped the sweat off Shinsinian's face with her own hands, but Shinsinian pushed her away and coldly questioned her. Don't you have anything to say? Songyi was embarrassed in front of so many people by Shinsinian. An embarrassed look flashed across her face. But she quickly looked on the verge of tears, with tears in her eyes. She was full of grievances. Sinian, today is our wedding day. It's fine that you didn't go to pick up the bride. You were so late and made me wait for you with a big belly. Don't you have anything to say? Shinsinian's face was extremely disapproving, and the veins on his forehead popped out. Yes, you, and that bastard in your belly, get out of here. Then he picked up the microphone and tapped it twice. Songyi sensed something was wrong and desperately tried to snatch the microphone from Shinsinian. As a result, she was pushed away violently by Shinsinian and crashed into the pillar of the hall. Without even looking at her, Shinsinian directly announced in public, "The wedding is cancelled." Songyi sat alone on the ground, and it took her a long time to come to her senses. Regardless of her dizziness, as soon as she stood up, she started tugging at Shinsinian. She had planned this for so long, and it was on the verge of success. She couldn't accept Shinsinian's sudden change of attitude. However, as if suddenly awakened, she suddenly walked up to me and questioned me. "Sure Nianchu, what exactly did I do to sorry you? Why are you framing me? Do you really can't stand to see me happy?" Songyi was so emotional that she started grabbing my shoulders again. Yao Yu wanted to help me pull Songyi away, but I stopped him with a look. Shinsinian also came over and pulled her. Songyi didn't dare to say anything to Shinsinian, so she took out all her anger on me. "I even blocked the wine for you back then. You can't break me and Sinian apart." Before she could finish speaking, I waved her arm away. I raised my hand to slap her. Songyi instinctively tried to dodge. And then I remembered not to hit a pregnant woman, so I turned my head and slapped Shinsinian twice. Shinsinian was stunned by my slaps and stood there holding his face in a daze. He still dared to speak. I changed my hand and slapped him twice more. At this time, Shinsinian's mother squeezed over. "Xiaochu, what about me? I had been waiting for this day for a long time. I don't hit women, and I don't hit elders." "Can't I hit Shinsinian every time Mrs. Shin said a word?" I slapped Shinsinian once. "Do you have anything else to say?" I was a bit tired from slapping. While these people hadn't reacted yet, I subtly took a step back and retreated to a safe distance. Soon, the whole scene was in chaos. Songyi unfortunately had a miscarriage during the argument with Shinsinian, and Shinsinian was taken away by the police. Shinsinian was also involved in the incident of Yao Yi being drugged. This wedding finally ended in absurdity. The next moment, we were both hit and sent flying by a car. I heard that before she fully recovered, she couldn't wait to go to the Shin family to demand an exorbitant compensation. As a result, just like in her previous life, Songyi still couldn't escape the charge of extortion. She was also severely scolded by Shinsinian, who met her on the street. He said that she was too ambitious but had a poor fate, and she had schemed so much but ended up getting nothing in the end. Songyi, who was mocked, completely lost her mind and directly drove into Shinsinian. In the end, the two of them perished together. After I found out, I couldn't help but sigh. Shinsinian had lived 2 lifetimes but still couldn't escape the ending of being hit and killed. Perhaps this was his fate. Everything was his own choice, and no matter what the consequences were, he had to bear them himself. Story 2, I lost the dare, and my boyfriend insisted I steal a bite from the poor student's meal. What are you waiting for? Go on. I can't wait to see him lose his cool. Am I back to 10 years ago? Approaching the poor student, I grabbed a piece of pickled radish and popped it into my mouth. He looked up, his eyes cold. Then, under everyone's gaze, I placed sweet and sour ribs and braised pork, all onto his plate. "This is to make up for the radish I took. I hope you don't mind." I looked at the future tech mogul, my eyes smiling. "Hello Susan at 17. I'm Mengyu, also 17. It just so happened that year you were insecure, and it just so happened that year I was radiant." Mengyu, you lost the dare. Go ahead and grab a bite from his bowl. When I opened my eyes again, my childhood friend and boyfriend Fu Ran was cheekily urging me to snag some food from Susan's bowl. The wealthy friends around us cheered him on. "Yeah, I can't wait to see the cool, aloof scholar." Embarrassed. What cool, aloof scholar? Just a poor nobody, right now. He might have grades to show off, but once he's out in society, he'll just be working for us. Haha, Listening to them mock Su-sun, I scoffed, birds of a feather flock together. As always, even the most innocent students have their own circles. I am the daughter of a government official. Fu Ran is the son of a wealthy businessman. We grew up together in the same luxurious neighborhood, childhood sweethearts. Thus, those we hung out with were all rich or noble, but I never liked this circle, however. I had no choice, as my parents restricted my social circle. Besides them, no one else played with me. 10 years ago, influenced by them, I took a piece of pickled radish from Su-sun's bowl. Then, I placed a chocolate I had with me next to his hand. That was the only interaction between him and me throughout our youth. Back then, he always walked with his head down, so low, as if he would sink into the dust at any moment. 10 years later, I had completely forgotten about him. Until we met again at a sweet potato stall. By then, he had become a famous tech mogul, a powerful and influential figure, whereas I, after my father's imprisonment and my husband's abandonment, had become the city's biggest joke. 3. Why take such a long detour just to buy these lousy sweet potatoes? A woman with a new Hermes complained by the stall. Hey, these aren't lousy sweet potatoes. These are golden sweet potatoes baked by the daughter of a chief, Mr. Zhou. Is that really Miss Meng? She looks like she's in her 30s, guaranteed. After her father was brought down and Fu Ran left her, she ended up like this. That's too sad. Hearing them speak, the Hermes woman, stepping forward in her heels, approached me. Boss, give me 10 more sweet potatoes, make them tasty. I'm buying them for my housekeepers and drivers. I smiled ingratiatingly. Of course, miss, you are both beautiful and kind. Hearing me call her miss, she became even happier. Make it another 10. The man on the other side grabbed her. Why buy so much? You can't finish it all. She frowned disdainfully. How could I possibly eat this kind of low-class food? Low-class food. In the past, I always liked to buy street food to feed stray cats, but I never ate any myself. At that moment, the boomerang of youth hit me right between the eyes. I pursed my lips and sped up the flipping of the food. Let me help you. When Su-sun, dressed in a suit and leather shoes, appeared before me, I was completely stunned. He took me, a homeless person, to his private villa. There was no imprisonment, no coercion, nothing lecherous. He simply, like a friend, gave me a place to stay and helped me find a decent job. I was grateful to him and always thought about how to repay his kindness, but I didn't know how. On many nights, when I went out to get water, I would see Su-sun standing in front of the large floor-to-ceiling window, his pale fingers holding a lit cigarette. The moonlight spread coolly over the ground, surrounding him in a chill, consumed by solitude. Often, I wanted to hug him from behind, to comfort him, but I had no right to do so. Time passed. He truly expected nothing from me. He lacked nothing. Maybe he took me home simply because he felt pity for me, just like how I used to pick up stray cats and dogs from the streets, until he fell ill from overwork and was diagnosed with cancer. He still remembered my birthday and insisted on having me make a wish and blow out candles by his hospital bed. He said, a princess's birthday must be ceremonial. Indeed, later on, he always liked to call me princess. The disease had ravaged him. He was so thin that his eye sockets were hollow. Barely human, even his hand, placing candles, was pale and bony. He strained to smile at me. Princess, happy birthday. His voice was faint. I had to lean close to his mouth to hear him clearly. Tears in my eyes. I watched him, but he kept smiling at me. Quick, blow out the candles. His gaze, as if trying to etch my face into his memory forever. Smiling, he closed his eyes. The hand holding mine suddenly lost its strength. Hanging limply by the bed, I tasted the flavor of sadness. Like trees and grass soaked in a heavy rain, damp and aching all over, trembling, I blew out the candles and closed my eyes to make a wish. Oh God, my wish for my 27th birthday is to go back to being 17. Unexpectedly, my birthday wish came true. When I opened my eyes again, my rowdy friends were pushing me around. Miss Meng, what are you dazed about? Come on, I can't wait to see him explode. They laughed maliciously in Su-sun's direction. 17-year-old Su-sun was sitting in a corner eating. The lighting was dim, his silhouette lonely, just like him at 27, whether in poverty or wealth. He always kept to himself. Seeing him young and healthy again, my eyes welled up with tears. I approached Su-sun boldly with my tray. As he dined on the free pickled vegetables provided by the cafeteria, he saw that I wanted to sit next to him. The already cramped space tightened further as he shifted to make room. My large tray held nothing but rice, pickled radish, pickled cabbage, and a bowl of broth with pickled vegetables that had no trace of oil. At that moment, I felt a piercing pain spread through my body. After he was diagnosed with cancer, he could have tried chemotherapy, but the doctor said his body was too weak, malnourished from his younger days, which had left him with chronic health issues. Ultimately, he didn't even survive the second round of chemotherapy. Looking at his gaunt face, I choked up. Could you let me have some? I tried to control my emotions but couldn't complete my sentence. He must think I'm crazy. I composed myself and remained silent. Surprising him, I picked up a piece of radish and put it in my mouth. It was salty and astringent, like chewing wax. Susan, I'm sorry I'm late. When I looked up again, I only saw his cold expression. Classmate, you can get pickled radish for free over there. Please don't make such boring jokes. At this point in the cafeteria, many students had stopped eating and turned to look at us, their voices loud with discussion, especially the table in front of us, where the voices were loudest. Haha, Miss Ming is really bold, daring to provoke the aloof genius. It's only your high school classmates who call him a genius. His nickname in elementary and middle school was Disaster. Oh, why do they call him Disaster? Isn't it because he caused the death of his biological parents, and also? Hearing the word disaster, he clenched his fists, veins bulging on his pale skin. Before the girl at the front table could finish, I stood up. Didn't your parents teach you not to gossip about classmates behind their backs? Still not satisfied, I added, you may have parents, but it seems you lack home training. The girl I confronted didn't dare to provoke me further, only muttering quietly, is she on the wrong medication? Didn't she used to tease Susan? This angered me even more. And I was about to give her a piece of my mind, then I felt a cold touch on my hand. It was Susan holding me back. Sit down and eat. His tone was calm, and his expression had returned to normal. After sitting down, under everyone's gaze, I moved all the sweet and sour ribs and braised pork from my bowl to his plate. I said with a pleading look, this is to make up for eating your radish. I hope you don't mind. Oh, and although we've been classmates for so long, it seems we've never really met. Hello, 17-year-old Susan, I'm 17-year-old Mengyu. I smiled brightly and reached out my hand in friendship. My words poured out rapidly, and he just stared blankly as my mouth moved. I'm full. After a pause, he dropped those words and left, leaving me stunned in place, and the chocolate I had almost squeezed to a pulp, still ungiven. After I arrived, I didn't eat anything at all. Later, feeling guilty, I gave him a piece of chocolate when I left. Fu Ran even mocked that this would be the best thing Susan would ever eat in his life, but 10 years later, while I was organizing Susan's study, I saw that piece of chocolate again on his desk. Susan had preserved it under a delicate glass dome filled with a special gas to prevent it from decaying. In that moment, countless thoughts flashed through my mind and a surge of emotions overwhelmed me. The chocolate in the palm of my hand revealed the secret he had kept hidden, but now, the vast differences in our social statuses and the great disparity made me suppress all those thoughts. After all, it's just a piece of chocolate. What could it really signify? I'm no longer the wealthy young lady I once was. What right do I have to stand by his side? Ha ha ha, Mengyu, that was rather harsh of you, giving your leftovers to the unlucky star. If anyone is insulting, it's you, the young mistress. Fu Ran plopped down next to me. I looked at him in surprise. So in their eyes, my actions were an insult to Susan. Could it be that Susan thought the same? Ah, what a fool I am. All I thought about was wanting him to eat well. But the way I expressed it was so upsetting. Pei Pei sat on the other side, speaking slowly. But why did you help that disaster earlier? Those girls weren't wrong. Susan caused the death of his own parents and his younger sister. If you get close to him, sooner or later, he'll bring disaster upon you too. Pei Pei was also part of our circle. As the son of the principal, he had considerable influence at school. He had a violent temper and often bullied his classmates under the guise of playing games. After my family fell into decline, Fu Ran's attitude towards me changed overnight. He began to encourage me to curry favor with Pei Pei, all for a big contract, but I foolishly continued to harbor illusions about them. After all, we had been friends for many years. It wasn't until a joint family trip, when Fu Ran went to the room next door and Pei Pei entered my room, that I realized how rotten our circle had become. I gave Pei Pei a cold look and retorted irritably, so superstitious, then why keep doing heartless things without fearing being struck by lightning one day? Pei Pei's face turned pale instantly. Mengyu, what did you say? Say that again if you dare. Seeing our confrontation escalating, Fu Ran quickly tried to mediate. No no no, Master Pei, she's not in her right mind today. Don't take it to heart. I shook off his disgusting, filthy hand. You're no better, a rotten person. Both were stunned by my sharp insults. They seemed not to understand how I had suddenly changed today. Before they could react, I quickly returned to the classroom. I couldn't stand to stay in this thoroughly rotten circle a moment longer. When I got back to the classroom, the bell for class had already rung. I had no choice but to wait until after class to explain to Susan that I hadn't meant to put my leftovers in his bowl. This class was my least favorite, math. Although I wasn't in the mood to study, I forced myself to pay attention. In my previous life, it was because of neglecting subjects like this that I didn't get into a good university. After graduating from college, I married Fu Ran. I spent the first half of my life depending on my father, and the second half would depend on my husband. This is how people ruin themselves. So, after I broke away from that circle, due to my lack of specialized skills and impressive educational background, I found myself destitute, selling sweet potatoes. Given a second chance by fate, I was determined to seize it firmly. I listened intently, eyes wide open, for half a class. Unfortunately, friends will leave you, husbands will betray you, but math won't, because what you don't know in math, you just don't know. Listening to a math class was like trying to understand an arcane script to me. Sighing, I looked around, my gaze settled to the left. There sat a figure, both unfamiliar yet familiar, sitting upright attentively, eyes fixed on the blackboard, occasionally jotting down calculations on a piece of paper. He was lean, his face pale and gaunt, lacking vitality, with a persistent shade of light blue shadowing his brow. Compared to his commanding presence 10 years later, he now appeared somewhat green and insecure. Mengyu, what are you staring at? Stand up and tell us. Caught staring at Susan too intently, I was called out by the old math teacher. Calmly standing up, I cheekily replied, I was looking at Susan. The class erupted in murmurs. Only Susan continued to quietly work on his problems, though his farriers visibly reddened. My math was poor. And this bold declaration only infuriated the teacher further. Come on, tell me, what about him are you looking at? Don't even think of leaving class until you explain, I said with a beaming smile. Because he's handsome. That remark set the whole class abuzz. As expected, I was asked to leave the classroom. However, given my father's status, it wasn't long before another teacher took me to the office to cool off in the air conditioning. After class, I couldn't wait to find Susan to explain about the meal. He kept his head down, working on problems, and didn't look at me, merely responding lightly, it's okay. I didn't think much of it. I breathed a sigh of relief. Glad you didn't misunderstand me. He was surprisingly easy to get along with. Why had I always thought he was so cold and difficult before? Seeing him still focused on his problems, I felt it improper to disturb him further. I placed my favorite chocolate next to his hand, bent down, and smiled at him. This is my favorite chocolate, for you. He glanced at it, then his gaze returned to his book. Thanks, but I don't eat it. It's really tasty, just try it. I peeled off the chocolate's foil wrapper and popped it into his mouth. My fingertips brushed his lips, sending a tingling sensation through my body. He looked at me in shock. I was flustered, time seemed to stop, and he even forgot to chew, my face burning. But with no turning back, I bravely said, tastes good. Right, I didn't lie. I'll bring you some every day. With that, I ran off. When school was over, Fu Ran blocked my way home. I frowned at him. What's up? His arms crossed, his expression displeased. What's gotten into you today? Why are you so nice to that Jinx? I want to. Why do you care? He grabbed my shoulders. Today, because of Susan, you offended Pei Pei. Susan will become his next target in his games. No way. Is he crazy? If he has a problem, he should come at me. Hearing Susan's name made me anxious. Fu Ran's eyes darkened as he gripped my chin, his words deliberate. Mengyu, don't tell me you've fallen for that trash. With a sneer, I said, if I don't love him, do you think I'd love someone like you? Mengyu, he was infuriated by my words, angrily pushing me against the wall and kissing me forcefully. Memories of the past flashed through my mind. I felt so disgusted that I almost threw up. I pushed him away with all my might and slapped him across the face. What are you doing, Fu Ran? He loomed over me, using his strength to pin me tightly between his arms. What am I doing? Didn't I tell you that the woman you saw that day was my sister? Weren't you just trying to provoke me by bringing up Susan? Wow, this scumbag. I've really had it with him. Just as I was about to retort, I caught a glimpse of someone out of the corner of my eye. Susan, he was holding a trash can. walking towards the classroom. As he passed by, his gaze fell on Fu Ran and me. In just a second, he casually shifted his gaze away and continued on his way. My chest felt painfully tight. So, he must think again that I approached him just to irritate Fu Ran. I seized the moment to deliver a strong hit to Fu Ran's vulnerable spot. Fu Ran doubled over in pain. If you're sick, go see a doctor, okay? I dropped that line and ran after Su-sun. Su-sun, it took me a while to catch up to him. I grabbed his sleeve and explained, I don't like Fu Ran, he's a scoundrel, he forced me just now. Su-sun kept walking. His long strides meant that his quick pace was like a jog to me. As he moved swiftly, he responded, Miss Meng, I'm not interested in your romantic affairs, you don't need to explain, he's not my boyfriend. Then, remembering that we hadn't officially broken up, I added, although we haven't broken up yet. We will soon. He stopped, looked at me seriously, and said, Meng Yu. I'm neither interested nor have the time to be a plaything for you wealthy folks, please don't talk to me anymore, thank you. The last two words, he almost gritted out. After saying that, he walked away without looking back. His words felt like a cold shower from head to toe. I stood there for a while, feeling the sunset was particularly glaring. Why are there always so many misunderstandings between us, always missing each other? It's okay. It's okay, I comforted myself. Now I am the daughter of a high-ranking official. What does rejection matter to me? I followed him again, but this time, it provoked his anger. Stop following me, get lost. 10 years later, it was just like 10 years ago. This was the first time in all our time together that he had been so harsh with me. Looking at his fierce demeanor, I felt helpless. After a while, I managed to muster a smile. Well then, goodbye, see you tomorrow. Turning away, my eyes moist, my heart felt choked. For several days, I left chocolates on his desk. Of course, he threw them all into the trash can. I stared at the chocolates in the trash for a long time, feeling lost, sad, powerless. These emotions surged like the sea, enveloping me. It's okay, it's okay. Misunderstandings, there's always a way to clear them up. Because Pei announced that Su-sun would be the target of the next game, the whole class started to refuse cooperation with Su-sun during his role as the math class representative. Whenever Su-sun went to collect homework, there were always those who deliberately dropped their assignments on the floor, forcing him to bend down and pick them up. So, I took it upon myself to help him collect them. The next time I placed the collected homework on his desk, he finally spoke up, Classmate Meng, I've resigned from the class representative position. Please, keep your distance from me from now on. The small flame of hope that had rekindled within me was abruptly extinguished. After a few seconds of silence, I couldn't help but ask again, why? He glanced up at me, his eyes cold and indifferent. His thin lips uttered chilling words, because I hate you. I don't remember how I managed to return to my seat. That entire day, I was utterly distraught. I couldn't understand why, even after returning 10 years back, was it still so difficult? Oh God, please tell me, what should I do next? Meng Yu, come to my office, the class teacher called out during my moment of gloom, which brightened my spirits. Our class teacher was a young woman, and my mother always tried to win her over by gifting her designer handbags to look after me. She was incorruptible. Having entered this profession with a dream of teaching, she always insisted that I return these bags to my home, but I knew, in this world, no one is incorruptible. You think she is upright and clean because the price you offer isn't something she desires. Absolute power leads to absolute corruption. This time, I didn't just obediently return the handbags. Instead, I closed the door to her office and gently pushed the Chanel bag she handed me back towards her. With a smile, I said, Teacher Chen, your bag looks really nice. I moved my chair closer to her and continued under her surprised gaze. Teacher Chen, I heard your husband and child are in Jincheng. It would be great if his job could be relocated to Hangzhou. At the mention of this, her eyes lit up. I lowered my voice so only the two of us could hear. My father has a comrade who is a key figure in Hangzhou's personnel department. After pondering for a moment, Teacher Chen took the bag back and said softly, This bag was recommended by your mother. It is indeed beautiful. Teacher Chen was very efficient. Before the class bell even rang, I found myself seated next to Su-sun, and Fu Ran, who was previously seated close to us, was now distanced miles away. Fuming with anger, he was helpless, under the class teacher's carrot and stick approach. Su-sun had no choice but to set aside our past grievances and reluctantly became my math tutor. Su-sun taught half-heartedly. But I studied with utmost seriousness. In this new chance at life, I truly did not want to be a useless person dependent on others anymore. Yet, math was truly nauseating. For those who excelled, like Susun who always scored full marks, they were genuinely brilliant. For those who struggled, like me, sometimes even scoring in the single digits, once again, I was stumped by a giveaway question according to Susun. This type of question has been explained twice by old Wang. And I have gone over it 3 times with you. If you still don't get it, I suggest you give up on math. The way he looked at me was as if he was staring at an idiot. A surge of anger rushed to my head. Susun, I'm mad, don't underestimate me. I will solve this problem today no matter what. Half an hour later, Susun came over. In a fit of anger, you just wrote a solution, he said, his eyes twinkling with a mischievous gleam. That was the first time I saw him smile. Time seemed to freeze. My mind went blank, and I just stared at him stupidly. Perhaps my gaze was too intense. He looked back at me. At that moment of eye contact, I guiltily turned away and said sheepishly, they say under pressure, people can do anything, but I guess that doesn't apply to math. No sooner had I finished speaking than Susun, with his head lowered, started laughing, his ears turning red. Is his sense of humor really that low? Mengyu, is this really your reason for breaking up with me? Fu Ran. Fuming, threw all the books on my desk to the floor. His voice was loud, drawing the attention of everyone else in the library. I gave him a cold glance and said sharply, what, they let you out of the hospital before you recovered? Hearing this, he became even more incensed and started causing a scene, disturbing the other students who were trying to study. Susun intervened. Fu, this is a place for studying. If you're not going to study, please leave. Studying. You think just because you can read a few books, you can steal my girlfriend and beat me? My family has worked hard for generations. How could we lose to someone who's only studied hard for 10 years? You'll end up working for me in the future. There he goes again, this brainless man, starting another of his arrogant rants. I stood up and said deliberately, 10 years of hard study is precisely what will overcome your family's 3 generations of business. He sneered. Oh. So you've decided to stick with this pauper? I scoffed. Laughable. What I do is none of your business. What, you think the injury you got last time wasn't enough, and now you want to be completely cut off? I glared at him provocatively, speaking venomously, thinking about the pain he experienced last time. He instantly backed down. Mengyu, I'm going to tell your parents. You just wait. Ridiculous. With that, he walked away, tail between his legs. I picked up the books from the floor and got back to studying. When Susun tried to say something, I spoke first. Last time, you misunderstood me. I wasn't using you to get back at him. I have nothing to do with him anymore. Last time, it was him, desperate, who spoke those words. He kissed me. It was against my will. I even thought about calling the police on him for harassment. So, please believe me, I really didn't. I was anxious to clear up the misunderstanding. My words tumbling out incoherently. But before I could finish, he interrupted. I believe you. No need to explain. I believe you, really. It felt as if the moon in my heart had risen again, and the stars shone brighter. Yeah, Susun seemed to hesitate for a moment, then asked, but why do you treat Fu Ran like that? Memories of being thrown out of my house in a previous life, stripped and humiliated in the snow by the man I loved from school uniform to wedding dress, surged through my mind. This love had nearly driven me to death back then. I held back my sadness and replied, because he made my life a living hell. Susun was somewhat surprised, but I couldn't and didn't want to let him know about these humiliating experiences. All I could do was laugh it off and change the subject. Also, because the person I truly like is you. At that, Susun really didn't press further. Instead he blushed, lowered his head, and went back to his work. Seeing that he didn't quite believe me, I suddenly had an impulse, took his hand, and confessed seriously, Susun, life is short. From now on, let me be with you. Okay. He was stunned for a few seconds, then quickly withdrew his hand, his neck turning an embarrassingly bright red. Solve this problem first. It will make my life a bit less bitter. Reinvigorated, I diligently worked through the problems. Our relationship gradually eased. He taught me math every day, and I brought him lunch every day. Auntie, please make some extra sweet and sour ribs in the blue thermal box, and double the rice portion, twice as much as mine. Housekeeper Aunt Jean nodded with a smile. All right. It seems young Master Fu has a sweet tooth. Boys his age do eat a lot. I'll pack some extra for him. It's not for Fu Ran, if he so much as ate a grain of my rice, I'd have to call the police. Ah, then for whom? Oh, don't worry miss, I won't tell anyone. I hugged her waist and cooed, hee hee, Aunt Zhang, you're the best. Please double the bird's nest in the blue box too. He studies so hard, he needs to replenish. Ah, he's a big boy, he shouldn't be eating bird's nest with you. I prepared 8 treasured tea with fine ginseng for him. My words were sweeter than honey. Ah, Aunt Zhang. You understand so well, and your cooking is so delicious. I love you to death, always clowning around. Go to school now. Under my careful feeding, Susan visibly became healthier. He no longer had to eat tasteless and greasy food in the cafeteria. Gradually, he gained weight, no longer so thin that a gust of wind could blow him over. Every day, I unwaveringly supervised him finishing a bar of chocolate with a glass of milk. His academic performance became even more frightening. Even before the college entrance examination, several prestigious universities had already extended their offers to him. With his tutoring, my math grades also started to improve. Now, he didn't just tutor me in math, but in other subjects as well. With his support and my own relentless efforts, my grades soared. In this life, I am determined to carve out a grand path for myself, because I know my father's downfall is inevitable. A crisis does not form overnight, it had been brewing since my childhood. All I can do is make myself strong enough that in 10 years, without relying on anyone, I can stand shoulder to shoulder with Susan. Even if the world changes, even if the constellations shift, years later, the world will also be ours. Susan, I want us to meet at the peak, and during the climb, I want to be the one by your side, forever, in this life, with my efforts. A seed of love has quietly sprouted in our hearts, we understand each other without needing to say a word. After resolving that misunderstanding, he started calling me princess again. I asked him, why do you always like to call me princess? After thinking it over seriously, he said, the day you offered me sweet and sour pork ribs as a friendly gesture, you were like a princess saving the world from suffering. Though high above, you are extremely kind. I laughed brightly but felt a bit puzzled inside. In my past life, I never made the first move towards him. Why did he still call me princess later on? But the answer doesn't matter anymore, because, in the long journey of life, I will be there with you. The day the autonomous admission exam at University A ended, I went to use the restroom, and just like that, Susan disappeared. A bad premonition welled up inside me. Sure enough, it was Fu Ran who had found Pei Pei, and they used the dirtiest and most despicable means to bully Susan during this period, because I was always by Susan's side. Pei Pei didn't have the opportunity to lay hands on him. This time, they dragged him into a small alley near the school. By the time I got there, a few people were holding Susan, while Fu Ran and Pei Pei took turns hitting him. Susan's face was contorted, his hands covering his abdomen, falling to the ground in pain. His breathing was rapid and unstable, sweat beading on his forehead, but he clenched his teeth, refusing to let any moans escape. Pei Pei spat out, damn, such a tough bone. Won't beg for mercy even close to death. Just as his fist was about to hit Susan again, I pulled out my phone to make a call. Hearing the sound, Pei Pei turned to look at me with ill intentions and walked towards me. What? Miss Meng is going to call the police. I clenched my fist, staring back at him fearlessly. He arrogantly continued, ha, call the police. Doesn't Miss Meng know what my uncle does in the police department? As he was about to snatch my phone, I immediately spoke with a crying tone. Hello, Dad, I'm in the alley by the school. Please come save me. Hearing this, Pei Pei panicked a bit. Fu Ran, didn't you say her dad went to Beijing? I threatened, even if he went to Beijing, try touching me and see what happens. Fu Ran, does your family's company no longer want to go public? Right then, the shrill sound of police sirens grew closer. The group panicked and scattered. I helped Susan up and took him home, all the way. Looking at his injuries, I felt both sad and guilty. If it weren't for me, those scoundrels wouldn't have targeted him. If it weren't for me, he wouldn't have been hurt today. Princess, Susan interrupted my ramblings and continuous apologies. This is the 100th time you've said sorry. Ah, sorry, am I being too annoying? The 101st time. I never expected that Susan would be living in the medical staff quarters where I lived as a child. The once bustling medical staff quarters were now dilapidated and barely inhabited. Susan's home was old but clean. After knocking, Susan's grandmother, with her hair fully white, opened the door for us. Her vision was somewhat blurry, and her movements were no longer as nimble. Yet, Grandma knew he had been hurt and kept asking him if he had been fighting with someone. Susan was hesitant and couldn't give a clear answer. I took it upon myself to explain to Grandma, "Grandma, I'm Susan's classmate, Mingyu, you didn't know, but today I was bullied by some thugs, and Susan rescued me. However, he got hurt in the process. Grandma, he's my hero." After hearing this, Grandma first praised Susan extensively, then, she began to grumble about telling the teacher to seek justice for us. After much persuasion from me, she finally agreed to temporarily hold off on reporting the incident and went to make us some noodles instead. Once we got to Susan's bedroom, I began applying medicine to his wounds. Before we even finished, his expression suddenly twisted in pain. "Play on the computer for a bit, I need to use the restroom," he said, leaving me alone, utterly bored. At that moment, an old-fashioned computer that was turned on caught my attention with a particular folder. I clicked on it, only to find it required a password. The stars in the sky blink and wink. Seeing this phrase, my hands involuntarily typed a few characters on the keyboard. "There's a rag doll by the roadside." To my surprise, it unlocked. It was as if an autoplay button had been pressed. The nursery rhyme echoed in my mind, recited by a gentle female voice once again. Inside the folder were numerous diary entries from Susan's mother. December 25, 1996, today. I found out I'm pregnant and was also promoted to attending physician. I've worked so hard for so many years, and finally, I have a good return. All this good fortune must have come from you, my baby. You truly are mommy's lucky star. Let's call you little lucky star. May 20th, 1997, just at the unit, my senior colleague personally examined me and confidentially told me that it's a boy. Su Chang asked what name we should give to the child, since his nickname is Lucky Star. Perhaps his formal name should be Wuyo, Su Wuyo, Su Wuyo. May you live a life free of worries, Wuyo. Your mom and dad will love you dearly. March 17, 2002. My Wuyo really loves candied haws, just like his father, so fond of sweets. I've been promoted to chief physician, but I still owe it to my senior colleague's recommendation. It turns out her husband is so capable, holding such a high position at such a young age, but she always has a drink before going to the operating table. A habit that no amount of persuasion can break. I'm really worried something might happen, but on a happier note, Su Chang's sketches are selling better and better, and everything at home is moving in a good direction. Our savings have also started to increase. Wuyo asks every day for a little brother or sister, which isn't feasible. I didn't realize when Susan had sat down beside me. I jumped, quickly wiping away my tears, but before I could explain or apologize, he spoke first. It turns out that he, like me, once lived in an incredibly happy family. His mother was a doctor and his father a painter, with favorable family conditions. He was the apple of their eye. That was until his mother passed away. Every child wishes for their parents to be in love, except me. Ever since the year my mother passed, my birthday wish every year has been for my dad to stop loving her. Unfortunately, heaven didn't heed my wishes. He continued to love her forever, loving her so much that he was willing to give up on me, and even life itself. Susan spoke these words with a calmness as if a light breeze was passing by, yet, my tears, once again, began to fall. Susan's mother had died from complications during a premature labor due to a medical accident, yet, his father blamed everything on Susan. Disaster, as everyone calls me. People usually detest their nicknames, feeling insulted by them, but I can't because this nickname was given by my father. He said I was a disaster, that I caused the death of my mother and sister. My original name was Su Wuyo, meaning carefree, but he changed it to Susan. He said, how could I live a life without worries after causing the death of my mother and sister? Susan's eyes were hollow as he stared out the window, his tone so neutral it was as if he was talking about someone else's life. Dad was right, the premature labor was my fault. I insisted on having gourds in the middle of the night. At that hour, most shops were closed. My mother, pregnant with my sister, had to cross several streets before she found some. On her way back, she suffered from hypoglycemia. He suddenly stopped speaking, as if choked by a lump in his throat. After a while, he began again. Actually, there was still a chance when she was taken to the hospital. Unfortunately, the surgeon was her colleague who liked to drink before operating. At that moment, time seemed to freeze, my ears buzzed. My mind went blank, and suddenly, I couldn't hear anything. I don't know how I managed to leave Susan's house. I wandered the streets, dazed, until the biting cold wind finally snapped me back to reality. In fact, Susan's mother's colleague was my own mother. 10 years later, the downfall of my father was because he had been covering up for her. In my memory, my mother was under a lot of stress, so she often drank. No one could persuade her otherwise. Gradually, her drinking became alcoholism. Operating while drunk inevitably led to several medical accidents, all of which were initially covered up by my father, until one incident got media attention and my father couldn't suppress it any longer, leading to a scandal. Patients who had been harmed because of this eventually came forward. In the end, my mother was dismissed from the hospital, but with the last of his influence, my father managed to protect her. My father, however, took on all the blame and was sentenced, it turns out. The mine laid by my parents was more dangerous and earlier than I had imagined. This mine not only destroyed the me 10 years from now but also left the current me utterly devastated. The mine laid by my parents was more dangerous and earlier than I had imagined. This mine not only destroyed the me 10 years from now but also left the current me utterly devastated. Suddenly, I seemed to understand. Why was I able to decipher that code? I remember that gentle and beautiful aunt who would sing nursery rhymes to comfort me when my mother was drinking. It was Susan's mother. Fate is indeed ironic. Only now do I understand what that piece of chocolate Susan had meant. 10 years later, it symbolized the overwhelming love he held back. Considering how capable he is, he must have known about our connection all along. That's why he always kept our relationship strictly platonic, and that's why he gave me just enough to get by, no more, no less. I stood by the riverbank, the winter wind chilling to the bone, the snow fell heavier, thick as goose feathers. I stretched out my hand, and a silver petal landed in my palm. Past and present life flashed before my eyes. Scene by scene, I stood there for a long time, so long that I lost all sensation. Susan, if heaven is willing to give us another chance, it means our fate is destined. Whether you are Susan or Su Wuyo, you are the love of my life. Mengyu, we are destined to embrace each other in this world filled with pain and love. If it's meant to be, I wish to walk through life with you. If it's a doomed fate, I will follow you to the underworld. Mengyu. I looked towards the voice. At the end of the long street, the twilight was dim. Susan stood there, his figure upright. My tears instantly overflowed. He walked towards me, step by step. I've been looking for you for a long time. What are you doing here alone? My voice was almost too hoarse to speak. How did you get here? You looked like you were in a trance when you left the house. The more I thought about it, the more wrong it seemed, so I came looking for you. Susan took off his scarf and wrapped it around my neck. I felt warmth spread through me. I looked at him, my vision blurring more and more. Susan, you are the one I would choose even if the whole world were against it, even if it means being cursed by thousands. I still decided to give it a try. Even if I'm just a small page in your story, even if I can only be a small wave in the river of your life, I have to tell you. I took a deep breath, looked earnestly into his eyes, and slowly began. Susan, do you know why I was able to decipher that code? He looked back at me, silent. It's because that nursery rhyme was taught to me by your mother. Hearing the word mother, his eyes lit up. I continued. And my mother was the senior sister mentioned in your mother's diary. His pupils dilated, and his face turned pale. He stood there motionless for a long time, like a marionette. His reaction was as expected. Time slowly passed, until we were both covered in a thick layer of snow. I slowly said, let's go home. Goodbye, Susan. I turned around, crying inconsolably. Today is my 17th birthday. Susan is not by my side, facing the heavy snow. I make a wish, dear heaven. My wish for my 17th birthday is for Susan to be safe and healthy for the rest of his life. In the days that followed, Susan and I seemed to return to the way we were at the beginning. I couldn't bring myself to reach out to him anymore. Even though I still placed chocolates on his desk every day, I never saw him eat them, nor did I see him throw them away. However, the fact that he still chose to sit with me was a good outcome. I didn't hope for anything more. Soon, winter passed and spring arrived. The college entrance exams were approaching, and time became increasingly tight. This time, driven by a frenzied determination, my grades improved steadily, although I still struggled with math. Fortunately, I knew Susan's habits well. He would mark important questions with a red pen. I could sneak a look. His notebooks were meticulously organized, categorizing various methods and common errors, the handwriting neat and the arrangement clear, and since he never took his notebooks home, I easily obtained what could be called a top student's treasure trove. After overcoming my weaknesses, my ranking steadily closed the gap with Susan. The mallow flowers bloomed, and the long summer stretched ahead. Once again, I entered the examination hall for the college entrance exams. After the results were released, I was ranked first in the school. Susun's results couldn't be found. Top universities like Tsinghua and Peking tried to call him but couldn't get through. They came directly to the school to recruit him. Later, I moved some money from home and, under the guise of the nanny, Mrs. Zhang, I gave Susun 1 million yuan in the name of sponsoring the top scholar. In the future, he would need this money as startup capital. In this life, I didn't want him to exhaust himself again, slowly saving up this money through sheer physical toll. As a result, I was whipped by my father and left covered in scars, because I told him that I had gambled away the million yuan. For several days, I was beaten so badly that I couldn't get out of bed, but ultimately, as his daughter, after he sternly warned me never to gamble again, he let me be. On the day of our graduation dinner, I drank several bottles of alcohol. Alcohol emboldens the cowardly. Once again, I found myself outside Susun's apartment. He came downstairs and upon seeing me, his eyes shimmered with emotion, but he hesitated to speak. The sky was overcast, ripped apart by a dazzling streak of light. Looking at his face, so familiar, I felt like crying. Susun, I know you can't accept me, but that's okay. Can you let me finish what I have to say? Seeing my tearful eyes, he could only nod. Susun, in the days to come, you must take good care of your health. You can't keep eating pickles and fermented tofu every day. You need better nutrition. Also, no matter how busy you are with your studies and career, you must get enough sleep. Of course, there's one more very important thing. After you graduate from college, you must get a thorough annual checkup, especially your liver. I was getting more urgent and emotional as I spoke, but before I could finish, he interrupted me. Mengyu, let's go to hell together. His voice was cool and detached, and I was taken aback for a moment. I stared wide-eyed, the sudden warmth on my lips rendering me momentarily speechless. When I came to my senses, I hugged him back tightly. Large raindrops began to fall. Soon, the rain was like a curtain, pouring down heavily. Princess, it's raining. His voice was right by my ear as I looked out over the city shrouded in mist, feeling as if I were dreaming. The rain kept getting heavier, yet I couldn't bring myself to let go. It had taken all my strength and all the luck of my lifetime to embrace you so completely. 30, a decade later, my parents ended up with the same fate. During these 10 years, no matter how much I tried to persuade, I couldn't change the fact that my mother was an alcoholic. Of course, my father's increasingly wayward path didn't change either. That was to be expected. I had seen his confession after he was caught. In the video, I didn't see any heartfelt remorse. All I saw was him accepting his fate with composure. So no matter how many times I might relive this life, I can't change that inevitable conclusion. Susun still ended up with cancer, but fortunately, it was discovered early this time, thanks to my meticulous care over the past decade, and his rigorous exercise routine under my watch. Along with his early nights and early mornings, his body managed to withstand the surgery to remove part of his liver. Because he was in good physical health, he recovered quickly. However, the doctors said there was a possibility of recurrence, so he needed to live a regular life and keep his spirits up. I smiled confidently. With me around, I won't give those cancer cells any chance. 31, Susun. The hardships of fate have pushed you to the edge of a cliff, so let me sit with you at this cliff's edge, admire the flowing mist and fog, and from now on, we'll be inseparable in life and death. End of text. Susun side story. 1. Actually, calling Mengyu a princess started with our first meeting. Back then, my grandmother always tried to sneak into the rich neighborhood to scavenge through trash because even the garbage bins of the wealthy were full of treasures. One day, she was caught by security. She was pushed to the ground and couldn't get up. After receiving the call, I ran frantically to the rich area until I found my grandmother, and only then did my heart slightly calm down. While helping my grandmother home, I passed by Mengyu's house. At that time, she was hosting a birthday party. Her home was splendid, like a castle from a fairy tale. I saw her parents, relatives, and many classmates all around her. She stood in the center, smiling brightly and radiantly. And there I was outside, peering in, like a rat in the gutter, trying to glimpse the world's most beautiful princess. Unexpectedly, we met again at school later. Her boyfriend forced her to pick food from my plate, but all I had in my bowl was the free pickled vegetables from the cafeteria. At that moment, my inferiority was fully exposed. I knew she despised my food because it wasn't what her kind would eat. Luckily, she didn't eat it because how could a princess eat such things? Perhaps it was a whim, but before leaving, she gave me a piece of chocolate, too, yet, her casual gesture stirred ripples in my life. When we met again, the once high and mighty princess was selling sweet potatoes, covered in dirt. She silently endured the mockery from her former friends. Seeing her like this choked my heart. By then, I knew about her parents. I also knew the unscrupulous doctor who operated on my mother and sister was her mother, but later, I thought it through. My father had directed all his resentment towards me. I had experienced that suffocating feeling, so why should I let history repeat itself on her? I took her home and treated her like a friend, suppressing my overwhelming love for her because I was afraid of scaring my little princess. Through our time together, I felt the warmth of life, successful in my career. The world is grand and brilliant, but it is also dark and bloody. No matter what the world is like, I will forever be an outsider, like duckweed, like a lost soul, until the princess appeared again, giving me a sense of grounding. She brought me warmth and sunlight,